for the Wild Oysters project. Maria is a marine scientist and researcher at Bangor University, working on the Wild Oysters Restoration Project, which aims to restore Britain's ocean health through the restoration of the native oyster. Maria's prior research has investigated environmental interactions, biodiversity and population dynamics for a wide range of shellfish species. Maria.
Hello everyone. So my name's Maria. It's a bit of a double act today. So you've got myself and also Rhianna speaking with you this afternoon about the Wild Oysters project Conwy Bay. So, quick overview. So the Wild Oysters project was initially a national collaboration between conservation charities, the Zoological Society of London, and also Blue Marine Foundation, and also British Marine, which is the membership trade association for the marine industry. This project was previously funded by the People's Postcode Lottery from 2020 until the end of last year, and worked with local delivery partners to establish restoration hubs in Firth of Clyde, Scotland, Tyne and Wear in North East England, and Conwy Bay in North Wales. So, similar to the Marine Conservation Society, ZSL and Bangor University were fortunate enough to be awarded further funding from the Heritage Lotteries Nature Networks Fund, and this is until April next year. And this is to enhance the coastal habitat condition in Conwy Bay through native oyster restoration. So our key activities have been to develop and deliver a seabed restoration plan, oyster nurseries set up in 2 marina sites, Conwy Marina and Ganwy Marina, and create an outreach and engagement programme. We've been working with key local industries, regulators, businesses, individuals via our technical and local working groups to drive the development of the project locally. This presentation is shared on behalf of the wider team. So when I say oyster, what first comes to mind? So most people commonly associate oysters with being served at a restaurant, but there's a lot more to them. So what are oysters? So they're a type of bivalve mollusk. We're restoring the native oyster, also known as the European flat oyster, which can be identified by having a convex lower valve and a flat upper valve, hence the name. And they're sort of rounded in shape, yellowy green in colour, with concentric bands, a bit like a tree stump. They're found in the shallow, subtidal, coastal and estuarine habitat, but there are a few other species also found in North Wales. So you have the rock oyster, the Pacific oyster, which is elongated in shape, so a bit like a tear shape, and purpley pink in colour, and they're commonly found around the UK and Ireland. And then also we've got the bluff oyster, which looks very similar to the European flat oyster, but is slightly different coloration and has distinctive radiating rays. And this species is actually found in Chile, New Zealand, and the Menai Strait. So native oysters are reforming ecosystem engineers. So they create this complex 3D structure which provides habitat for many other marine life, providing vital nursery grounds and feeding grounds. So, in addition, the water filtration capacity of a native oyster is vast, with an adult oyster capable of filtering over 200 litres of water per day. I'm not sure whether this might not. Well, this is a video which shows 2 tanks. So you've got one with oysters and one without oysters, and just in the space of a few hours, the oysters filter feeding, the water clarity is improved vastly. Oysters are important for improving water quality and clarity of our seas. There's also novel techniques to remove nitrogen from within the coastal ecosystem, which are being explored. And one of these techniques involves using oysters and their habitats to remove nitrogen via denitrification. Oysters also remove phosphates and excess sediments from our waters as well. So this is a nice infographic, which is a bit of an overview of the range of services that Oyster Reefs provides. So you've got a range of provisioning, regulating, and cultural services. But essentially, although they're small and look a little bit like a rock, they're capable of making some big changes and are really important for keeping our oceans healthy and resilient. So all these ecosystem services also benefit us as well, benefit the local economy, recreation, commercial fishers, and also coastal communities, like you were saying about for wellness as well. However, unfortunately, our European native oyster has faced a population decline across Europe. And in the UK, we've reported a 95% loss in the past 150 years. This is due to disease, habitat loss, and overexploitation. We have just a few remnant populations, which can be found on the west coast of Scotland, South Wales, Milford Haven, Swansea Bay, and also on the south and southeast coast of England in areas such as the Solent, River Fowl, and Essex. It's thought that oyster beds once ring the British Isles, as seen on the map here. So those orange areas were where oyster reefs were once found. So yeah, our native oyster is on the path to extinction, and large-scale efforts are required to bring them back, which in turn will benefit people, but also nature as well. So why Conwy? So Wales once had a prolific fishery for the native oyster, which provided a vital food source and was also a huge contribution to the Welsh economy. Locally to Conwy Bay, there were productive native oyster beds in the 18th and 19th centuries in the Menai Strait, off Puffin Island, around Anglesey, as seen on the map. And native oyster shells were discovered on the Great Orme in a site dating back to the Neolithic and Bronze Age. So yeah, we've been eating them for quite a while. So Conwy Bay itself is part of the designated special area of conservation for its unique underwater habitats and marine species. And it also has a long history of important shellfish production, with a lot of research carried out by the previous Fisheries Experimental Station and also by Bangor University. So all this knowledge was vital when we were determining the local ecology, and also by working with local industries, businesses, regulators, has driven the development of the project locally as well. So how are we restoring oysters? So one of the barriers to oyster population recovery is that there is a low number of mature reproducing oysters. So building on the pioneering work carried out by Blue Marine Foundation and the University of Portsmouth in the Solent, we hold our adult broodstock oysters in specially designed nurseries, which are pictured there. So each holds 27 adult oysters. The nurseries are suspended on metal bars beneath the pontoons and are accessed through a hatch, which is made from the existing pontoon deck boards. So between our sites in Conwy Marina and Deganwy Marina, we have over 1,300 oysters in 48 nurseries, and these adults spawn during the summer months, releasing their larvae into the surrounding waters. So we've been carrying out monthly monitoring of our oyster nurseries for the past 3 years and still do so, come rain, come shine. We've got dedicated support of volunteers and also student research projects. This table shows a summary of our monitoring plan, but yeah, in the interest of time, I won't go into it, but we collect monitoring data on the mobile and sessile species associated, oyster survival, and also larval monitoring as well. So over the next few slides, I'll be sharing just a snapshot summary of some of our oyster nursery data, which was undertaken by all partners from ZSL, Bangor University, Blue Marine Foundation, and also Groundwork North Eastern Cumbria, and the reports will be publicly available very soon. So we found that oysters housed in the nurseries displayed clear growth from our shell measurement data, which is a great sign because if the conditions weren't right, they wouldn't be growing. We've had high survival rates of 78% annually, We experienced high oyster mortality rates in the summer, which was correlated to oyster spawning as seen in figure 2. So this displays the percentage of oyster mortality over time in both marinas, and the grey bars show the number of oysters brooding larvae. Larval monitoring wasn't carried out in 2021, so hence no bars there. Also, the total oyster water filtration for Conwy Bay Restoration Hub is currently over 82 million litres of water, which is the equivalent to 33 Olympic-sized swimming pools. So our mobile biodiversity netting of our oyster nurseries saw us record 56 unique taxa. The most common taxa include amphipods, shrimps and common shore crabs, and these images are of some of the species that we've recorded in Conwy Bay. So interestingly, we also had 58 sightings of the critically endangered European eels inside our oyster nurseries. Diversity varied seasonally, with the highest diversity observed during July. So when assessing sessile biodiversity on the shell of the oysters, it was dominated by barnacles, keelworms, sea squids, blue mussel, hydroids, and we also found that 91% of the taxa identified appeared to prefer the dorsal shell surface, as seen in figure 3. So another barrier to oyster population recovery is a lack of suitable habitat for the oysters to grow on. So at Conwy Bay site, we are improving an area of the seabed by providing settlement substrate for oysters, known as culch, following similar work undertaken by the Essex Native Oyster Restoration Initiative. So oysters are gregarious and like to settle on other oysters or shelly material, and this is how they form their reefs. So we started with the deployment of 650 tonnes of local limestone in June last year. So limestone is a calcium carbonate similar to shells and is a common alternative substrate for oyster reef restoration, as it supports natural recruitment of native flat oysters and is used in other marine habitat recovery as well, such as coral reefs, for instance. So later this summer, we plan to deploy 97 tonnes of scallop shell, 50 tonnes of cockle shell, followed by oyster deployment. So this table here is a summary of our monitoring plan for the seabed restoration site. So we'll be assessing the project footprint, reef height, infaunal invertebrate, mobile species, habitat and sessile species, shell cover, oyster density, and also settlement. We're also exploring different environmental monitoring techniques and equipment, and we'll also be conducting oyster survival and grow out trial experiments. So I will hand over the baton to Rhi, who will be talking to you about our engagement.
Okay, good afternoon everyone. My name is Rhianna, pnawn da pawb, benw ydi Rhianna. So I'm the newly appointed Education and Engagement Officer for the Wild Oysters Project in Conwy Bay. So for the next 3 slides, I'm just going to be speaking about the engagement activities that have been taking place over the last 3 years and also the coming year as well. So in some communities, there is a living memory of native oysters, and that still remains, but in many communities, they have gone. The Wild Oysters Bay project will reignite the appreciation and cultural attachment to native oysters. We have a public engagement, education and citizen science programme aiming to educate and connect people with the seas through our oysters, and we hope to inspire the next generation of marine stewards. And one of the project's goals is that a wider range of people will be engaged with the historical and natural heritage of oysters in Conwy Bay. And we have quite a few outputs. So we're going to reach 3,000 young people from local schools, education providers like colleges and universities, and they will know more about the marine environment and become inspired to become marine stewards through specialist outdoor marina site visits and oyster nurseries. And through our outreach events and online engagement, 10,000 local people will know about the importance of oysters for the marine environment and will feel ownership and pride that knowing that Conwy Bay is part of the future to the native oyster. And also we'll train an additional 60 number of sisters in science to help with our monthly oyster nursery monitoring sessions. and also produce a monitoring and evaluation of our public engagement activities, schools through outreach events, outlining our key learnings for engaging STEM and minority ethnic groups as well, most importantly. Okay. So I'm going to speak about our citizen science programme. So we run a citizen science programme offering opportunities for all. No qualifications needed or background in conservation or restoration efforts. Just a good heart and interest in the project. It's a good way to connect our community with our seas, and science-led projects are not unreachable. We also have an amazing, dedicated team of volunteers, and they're providing a vital help to assess oyster health and conduct biodiversity surveys of the oyster nurseries in Conwy Bay and the Ganwy Marina as well. To date, we have trained 179 volunteers, with equivalents to 2,100 volunteering hours. And the Wild Oysters project in Conwy Bay has partnered with local communities, NGOs, national governments, local businesses, marine industry, and universities. And by partnering with the local organisations, we're hoping to build a lasting legacy. So I'll be speaking about our education programme as well. So we have developed an education programme for Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3 students from ages of 8 to 14 years old, in line with the Welsh curriculum. The materials and contents can be adapted to meet the needs of different audiences, and the material sessions are available in both yn y iaith Cymraeg a Saesneg and in English. A few examples of the free activities that we offer to schools include marina site visits, what we call oyster safaris, so they can see the oysters up close, a curriculum link, classroom workshops and assemblies, digital or in person as required, and hands-on participation in our marine conservation project. We also offer students internships and research projects opportunities working alongside the project. We've engaged with over 1,000 local schools in Conwy Bay, and as a wider project, our online materials have reached over 13,000 students. And a bit of context, I came into the project as a citizen science, so it shows that engagement with the wider community is super important, and that's how I've landed this amazing fun role as well. And yes, thank you for having Maria and I, and that is the end of our presentation. Thank you.